just can't do enough fitness with, playing tennis. So just trying to walk as much as I can,
Yeah.
really.
I mean, you look great. I know I say that to you every single time I see you, but you look great. Like, how do you stay in shape? What's the kind of secret?
You mean my skin complexion or the physicality? No, I mean, look, I think for me, it's I need to exercise. I need to sweat just because we have so many things in our minds that the only way to really get rid of them is just either to walk and have your own time, but also to just sweat and take it out even on the weights. Or when I used to play tennis, and I can't unfortunately right now
Mm.
because I've got tennis elbows, would just be with you and the tennis ball and nothing else. Um, so for me, I try to just keep fit by walking, doing exercise. If I don't have 3 days of non-exercise, I do feel a bit grumpy because I just need to exert and have that sweat out.
Yeah.
So I play football once a week and then gym 3 times a week.
Okay. What
Um,
position do you play?
striker.
One of those guys.
Yeah, striker, but yeah, striker, but midfield and yeah, so I'm enjoying that. And the beauty about here being in this amazing country is it's never going to rain, right? When I was playing tennis back in the UK, you had to think, okay, is it going to rain if you weren't playing indoors? But here that it's just beautiful. Even in the heat with the temperature, what is it, 40 degrees? It's such a nice sweat. When I was playing tennis last year or
Mm.
up until last year,
Mm.
you just sweat. Even your shoes are just soaking full of sweat. But it's just that nice feeling.
So good.
And then you go into a cold pool, and then just that real, that the intensity of the cold just really helps with the recovery as well. So I try and do that when I'm playing tennis.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Also for the mind, just to, can you go into that cold? Because your body doesn't want it, but it's that taking your mind over that boundary of, okay, I'm going to go into that cold, in that cold plunge.
I'm always worried that I'm going to have a heart attack. Like, seriously, I love the idea,
Yeah.
but just that, I don't know, like, I'm 50 now. I'm so
I can't.
worried that
I'd
I'm,
love to look 50 like you,
oh, come
honestly.
on, man. I just am so terrified that I'm going to jump into that cold water and just the change in heat is just going to
Yeah.
stop my heart or something. Does that happen or?
I've not heard. I mean, they've only ever talked about positive things about going
Mm.
into an cold pool ice bath, and Dr. Andrew Moon's talked a lot about that. Um, but for me, I try and do it every morning.
Really?
So not a cold because I don't have
Yeah.
access to one, but just a cold shower, because it's that first point on, can I conquer? Can I go beyond my mind? Because my mind doesn't want it. Doesn't want that cold
No, no.
flash of water. But if in the morning you can start by, I'm controlling the mind is not controlling me,
Mm.
and you can go beyond that, then you're starting the day off, yes, I'm in
So good.
control. So I do go for a cold shower in the mornings. But they do say after a gym workout, it's not good for your muscle recovery.
Okay.
So if you're going for intense walks, playing sports, then a cold shower or a cold pool is good for the recovery.
Mm.
But if you are lifting after a gym, or if you're lifting during a gym,
Mm.
a cold shower or cold pool is not recommended.
Really? I was reading somewhere maybe 6 months ago. I was having palpitations, like really, really minor ones, right? And ChatGPT, of
As it is.
course, and it was talking a lot about the vagus nerve, and it was like, based on your symptoms, there's no issues, blah blah blah. Maybe it's your vagus nerve, right? And one of the things that it talked about was cold plunge, and if you cold plunge your face when you're having palpitations, it stops. And it's really interesting. It was for a very short period of time. There was no stressors. There was no reason to be. I wasn't feeling anxious, but I was just having these unusual palpitations. Got them checked out. Halas, not a problem, but they were still there. And then I started to do these kind of face plunges, and it instantaneously stopped it with also doing stretches, these vagus nerve stretches. Do you know a lot about the vagus nerve?
I
Or
read it.
nothing?
I watched. So there's someone called Dr. Schwetter.
Okay.
I know her quite well.
Hmm.
And we'll talk about her because she's also semi-involved with what, the wellness program, leadership program that's
Okay.
happening. But she was talking about the vagus nerve, which is
Hmm.
also linked to manifestation.
Okay.
And she said there are a couple of techniques you can use to really allow the vagus nerve to come out to really invigorate in a positive way the vagus nerve. And you said one of them is a cold shower. So obviously
Mm.
that's the reason why it helped because it allows you to really um I think there must have been a pain. Was it a pain or what was happening with you with
No, there
the
was no pain. It was just like a little bit of arrhythmia, like a little. So apparently, again, thank you, ChatGPT.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is not my intelligence, but your lungs and your heart are in part um, driven by the vagus nerve, or there's a linkage there, right? And in particular, it was saying that the palpitations that I was having was not necessary because there was no pain, there was no, anxiety, there
There
was no,
was
it was not that intense, but it was more actually related to the interaction between the vagus nerve and the lungs and the heart and blah blah. And it was actually more lungs, which is
oh,
really unusual.
strange, yeah.
So then if you can reset it, whether it's resetting it through, I think there's some massages, there's some nerves that
Mm,
you can
yes,
sort of
yes.
massage here.
And here as well. Was it saying anything here on the
Yeah,
lower?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
there, and then also the cold plunges. And
Yeah.
literally, I mean, since I started that, I only did it for about 3 days, and stretches and stretching to the side, gone, completely gone. So
Nice.
I don't know whether it's magic or it's going to come
Yeah.
back, but it
Oh,
was
good.
it. ChatGPT, based on the self-diagnosis, seemed very specific that the vagus nerve is the most likely trigger that it's compressed or
Wow.
something like that. So.
Going on that, I heard someone had a chronic disease or chronic pain for 20 years.
Hmm.
ChatGPT was able to cure it.
So true.
It's just
It
amazing.
is incredible,
Yeah.
right? It is incredible. And that whole, I learned a lot about like the parasympathetic system and, because
Yes.
I think that that's
Yeah.
connected and there is absolutely no way, with all due respect, here in Dubai, they have a great healthcare system, but there's no way, even if your insurance is the best in the world, that you're going to get that level of, the intelligence may be there in the doctor, but they're not going to necessarily have the time or inclination to
Yes.
look more from a functional, holistic perspective, right? It's more
100%.
around,
Yeah.
okay, you're sick,
Exactly.
therefore let's kind of treat you. And I think that that's the beauty of ChatGPT, right? It can be systematic. It can give you empathetic yet direct knowledge that helps you understand kind of what you're going through. And it also can give you solutions as well,
And it can
right?
explain it to for a
Yeah.
2-year-old
Yeah.
for us to
That's
understand
what I do. I
the
say,
nuance,
explain
right?
it to me like I'm dumb because I
Yeah,
am.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, exactly. I mean, just going back on the cold pool thing,
Mm,
that's side a conversation. But my son is
mhm,
really into football, but also specifically Ronaldo. So he watches anything to do with Ronaldo. So Ronaldo has a cold shower in the morning.
mm.
So my son also started having a cold shower. He's six
Wow.
years old.
So good.
So it was funny because we were he was having a shower and he was like sort of semi screaming. I was like, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm having a cold shower because Ronaldo does." And now he just does it every morning.
Wow.
But these athletes are know what's good for their body, and he's doing that.
Doesn't Ronaldo eat sardines every single day or something
That's
like that? Yeah, yeah,
wow.
pretty much. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I love sardines,
Okay. Okay.
especially like the ones with tomato sauce and the real nasty ones. But apparently that's one thing that he has every single day for lunch. I
Wow.
could be completely wrong. I don't know. Our listeners will be able to
Yeah.
tell me if I'm wrong here. But he has these sardines, Adriatico with like tomatoes and stuff like that. And that's something that really helps him kind of keep his weight down and sort of keep on top of the things. When we're talking of I guess that the sort of the physical side and how you maintain your health. Are you a vegetarian?
I am.
Okay.
I am. I
Okay.
eat eggs, but I'm vegetarian.
Okay. Because I think that's another, I mean, again, looking great. Yeah, as you get older, right? It's hard.
Yeah.
It is really, really challenging, right? Especially keeping the weight off. It's a major challenge. And you were saying that it's been really difficult for you since you've stopped playing tennis with your tennis elbow. What do you do? Do you have a specific kind of way that you approach nutrition, the types of food that you eat outside of the fact that you're a vegetarian? You're smiling.
No, I mean I'm smiling because about weight. Like we're getting older, so it takes slightly longer to
Ooh,
reduce the
brutal.
weight and recovery.
Yeah.
So generally what I used to do, because I knew I'd be burning a lot of calories because I used to play tennis 3 times a week
Mm,
and then gym 3 times a week. So
mm,
that's six intense. I effectively made sure I had a high protein diet, but I wasn't focusing on making sure my calories were less because I knew if I'm gonna have a donut, I'll be running that off, so it's okay. Okay,
Okay.
apart from the potential heart disease, but
Yeah, yeah.
I felt my body was fine to reduce, to really burn those calories off.
Mm.
But now because my intensity in the, from a physical activity is just the gym and football and gym football once a week, I do have to really watch for, laying off the sugar because I really enjoy desserts.
Yes.
Desserts is my thing.
And now you have the Kanafe chocolate
Okay, yes,
spread.
of
They're
course.
so good.
And yeah, did you watch the what how she created that? It was
Yeah,
just
yeah,
amazing. But
yeah.
um, for me, desserts, chocolates, anything is, I love that. I'll have
Mm.
a nibble every sort of hour sometimes if I'm not careful.
Mm.
But for me, it's just making sure that I'm having a high protein diet because we need, as we're growing older as well, our muscles decrease
Mm.
exponentially.
Mm.
So we need to make sure especially for vegetarians, increasing our protein intake. So I have protein
So
shakes every
how
day.
do you do that? I mean,
I have a vegan protein shake.
okay.
And I've just started making smoothies with that, which is very filling with bananas,
Mm.
oats, oat milk,
Okay.
peanut butter, and it's really filling as well.
Mm.
So started having that and a lot of soya and tofu.
Mm.
So I really enjoy that kind of sort of food and dals as well, right? So lentils
Yeah,
and
that
so
was
forth.
fantastic.
It's and there's edamame. Lots of opportunity. Greek yogurt.
Mm.
So just make sure I'm conscious of at least having 75 grams of protein at least.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, obviously with the shake and so forth.
Yeah.
But I think it's just making sure, look, we're in this beautiful country, making sure we walk. Walk, they say, is the most beneficial for our health, but also not just to lose weight, but to be active, especially with our legs and stuff. So I try and walk as much as I can.
Mm.
Um, and that really helps, and obviously two kids and playing football with my son and
Mm.
taking obviously with my daughter as well,
Mm.
so that really helps keeping you up because also it can be very easy to be on the lazy side, right? Because everything is done for you here, so
Exactly.
you've got to be very, again, pushing beyond that, your mind.
Mm.
Okay, we've got the luxuries here, but actually, you know that we can get a Coke delivered, one Coke from downstairs, or do we just walk and get it?
Mm.
It's just that sort of, sometimes, look, we can dedicate our time to what's going to give us the best ROI, right?
Mm.
Do we have time to go and get the Coke, or are we in the middle of a meeting? Obviously, there's certain occasions where we don't have the time, which is fine, but generally, we need to, again, it's another sort of chatter in our mind.
Mm.
Actually, it's okay. I can just sit down, watch the sunset. Someone else can go and get the Coke. Or actually, let me go and get that Coke and I can go for a walk and see the sunset, right?
Yeah.
So it's that chatter with that mind, with our mind's thoughts, which we need to also.
It's very easy in Dubai, like you say, through the just the infrastructure that's built around convenience. It's
Mhm.
very easy to make an excuse not to do something. And then even if you look at summer, right? So you've got the challenge, you've almost halved your calorie burn because of you've cut tennis out, right? But you're already intensely burning calories anyway. You have that, but then you get to summer and it's 42, 43 degrees, 40, I think it was 47 a couple of days ago,
Yeah,
and we're not even into summer, and there's so many reasons to not do things, whether you can get it delivered,
yeah,
whether you don't have to cook because something can turn up within 30 minutes and it can be a fantastic meal. I feel that that is a eternal battle
of
here in
course.
here in
Yeah,
the UAE.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But I love that sweat. I don't know, especially in the evenings. Obviously,
I love it
during the
too.
days,
Yeah,
it can be a bit difficult
yeah.
walking. But how they've built Dubai, there are certain areas where it's shaded.
Hmm.
So even during the day, you can walk if you really wanted to as well, right?
Yeah.
Um,
That's the great thing about Dubai Creek Harbor, right? Which is
exactly.
where we both live for our listeners' benefit. And it's like they've built the skyscrapers. So in the morning you can walk around the marina and get, complete shade. It's incredible. And in the afternoon you've got the Central Park, which is shaded as
Exactly.
well.
And it's such a huge park with greenery and it's just beautiful. So,
Mm.
you could do yoga in the afternoon by the park and in the morning you can do it by the pier. So it's, yeah, the way they've structured it is just amazing. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
You've worked a lot in Saudi, right? So I mean, I've spent some time in Riyadh, not at the level that you have, and I believe you were almost commuting between the UAE and Saudi. How would you describe the transition that's happening in Saudi Arabia at the moment? Say in the last 3 years, and how would you contextualize that with where Dubai is now? Because from what I understand, you're high talent, right? With the work that you do, there's this, how would I say it? There's this competition for talent. In fact, little segue. I had a meeting many years ago with the CTO of Emirates Airlines. We were doing a project together. And he said to me, he said, Lee, the competition is no longer for customers, the competition is for talent, right? And I see that almost playing out here. You've worked in the UAE, you've worked in Saudi, you're right at that top tier from a talent perspective. How do you see that battle happening, and how do you see Saudi's evolution into a kind of more modern, I won't say secular, but a more modern kind of economy versus what's happening with the UAE? It's a big question with lots of
Yeah,
unknowns.
look, so I'll answer as best I can and let me know if I've missed anything
No,
off.
no,
So
roll.
my experience of Saudi was amazing,
Mm,
just positive. Um, and the only thing which was sort of keeping me here, or obviously I love the UAE, but my family, my kids are settled into school here.
mm,
And unfortunately, every week I would fly, and it was every week, Sunday to Thursday. My son would cry.
mm,
Um, and effectively, what they say in any human being between the age of 0 to 10,
mm,
8, is where certain belief patterns are there. And we'll talk about, I'm sure we'll talk about that
mm,
later, but what I didn't want is to have a negative association with me
mm,
that I'm flying because I don't love him. And there are certain,
mm,
and that's obviously not true, but sometimes between the ages of 8 and 10, as I said, you take that in as truth and that affects you for the rest of your life,
mm,
even though you could tell your son. So, it was an amazing experience. Loved every single moment. What Saudi Arabia are doing, we all know, are really moving the needle from innovation to investments. It is very different to Dubai, of course. You've got a population which is, 220x of
mm,
what's here in the UAE. Mostly Saudis have generally studied abroad, whether it's the US, and come back. So they have that different experience.
mm,
And they're in the likes of taxi drivers to hospitality to obviously in corporate and business. So because of the big population, they have that sort of luxury,
mm,
whereas the UAE don't, right? So they have that going for them. So the local talent can push them forward. And of course, they need the likes of, let's say, you and I to go there and give our experience from
mm,
where we've got the experience from the UAE and obviously from Europe and the UK, and obviously you're from New Zealand. So
mm,
from that multicultural sort of experience, but just working with them, the Saudis are very open, very friendly. Of course, the Emiratis as well are.
mm,
Um, and it was an amazing experience. We were creating a corporate venture capital there, just being involved in a startup ecosystem. It was fascinating. And there were a lot of energized people, and there still are.
mm,
It is, uh, you know, y- they say, you have to compare apples and apples. You just really can't compare the UAE and Saudi because they're just very different in the population, as I've mentioned.
mm,
But obviously, UAE are really trying to push the needle as well, and they obviously are trying to do that. But Saudi have the capital behind them.
mm,
They have the infrastructure we're seeing with SAMA and the open banking license. They're really pushing regulation to innovate fast and, which is great. So it was an amazing experience. And, what they're trying to do is obviously their 2030 vision. Dubai has a 2033
mhm,
vision, I believe. So they're both going to be successful. Of course they are.
mm,
There's no reason why they aren't because of what they've created. People, before, as you and I know, maybe 5 years ago, there was a question: do we move to Saudi or the UAE? No, no, it's more people who want to come here, and
mm,
it's now the entities here who have the luxury. And you're talking about talent. Now these entities really do have the leverage, if I'm going to be honest, because everyone really wants to come here. We're seeing about geopolitical
mm,
what's happening here, what's happening with Trump tariffs, etc. What's happening with stuff in the UK where I'm from, and well, generally most people do want to come here. So
mm,
the companies now have the leverage to choose the best.
mm,
Before they really had to lure them with big packages and so forth,
mm,
whereas now they don't need to. So I think it's a positive. It's definitely going to be a positive for them. So they can be more choosy for the talent, depending on what stage you're at, if you already have the experience in the UAE or in the GCC, it just depends on, what pecking order you are. So I feel like if you've got the UAE or GCC Saudi experience, you're going to be in the top, pecking order for them to choose. But if you don't, then you're sort of down the list.
It's interesting you say that because it's almost, I mean, when I came here in 2018 and my wife came here in 2008, right? Sort of prior to the global financial crisis, there was almost an element of hardship remuneration, right? There was a component of remuneration that said, hey, for you to come here, we'll pay you extra, right? And isn't it interesting, especially in the UAE, right? Just how that's been flipped on its head. The property market's gone crazy. People are they're not just moving here to make a quick buck and exit within 3 or 4 years. They're moving here and setting down roots, and they are looking long term, whether it's from the golden visas, the golden visa program that attracts, high quality talent, whether it's the fact that they're investing so much in infrastructure, whether it's the trends that you're seeing as well here. I mean, again, we only need to look out the window. There's trends of developers not just developing the building, but developing the community around it as well. And I think that's a really positive thing. I have a question around Saudi, and this is maybe a little bit polemic and kind of wanting to push the boundaries a little bit. But I wonder about Saudi and the UAE around velocity to be able to execute. So let's just simplify it: speed to execution. Now you come from, tier one consultancy background, right? So I'm going to prod you a little bit. I have varying views on the tier one piece. I had a team of McKinsey consultants when I was working at one of the big banks here. I've worked with Microsoft, Accenture, Deloitte, blah, blah, blah. I've had varying experiences. What I see with Saudi is there is this massive layer of consultancy that's been baked into the execution of the very big projects, whether it's Neom, whether it's the open banking piece. There is this huge layer of consultants that have been built, and I think even, correct me if I'm wrong, by 2030, for any crown institution in Saudi to be able to work with a consultancy, like, so let's just take BCG, they need to have a head office in one of the main centers in Saudi, from what I understand.
Oh, that's already in play.
Okay.
Yeah, that's already in play. Exactly.
So if we look at this scenario, um, I again, historically, I understand that that was the case here in the UAE as well, 10, 15 years ago. And we're still, working through that from a legacy perspective. But there's been a decoupling in the UAE from tier one, tier two consultancies. Yes, they still provide a important requirement, whether it's around risk mitigation, whether it's around access to hybrid talent, talent that's flexible, etc. There's a lot of positives there. But I wonder if that tier ones and the use of tier ones for whatever reason can cause, I don't know if entropy is the right word, this kind of this slower movement towards execution. And if that is one of the challenges that Saudi is facing at the moment versus the UAE, things seem to be going a lot faster in the UAE, from prototype to execution to delivery to scale. That's just my observation. I could be completely wrong. But do you see that there's a parallel there? Do you see that there's any truth in those statements? And do you see that tier ones actually play some part in that entropy or slowing down of execution?
I suppose you and I know with consulting, they will generally consult and so then they have future projects, right? So whether that's slowing it down, but and look, we've seen with what's happened with PwC now. The background we don't know. So is that because they were slowing it down on purpose? But I think there was obviously different nuances on why, PwC aren't able to operate in Saudi right now. That's not for you and I to sort of discuss. But to your question, no, I think it's again about talent, right? Does the kingdom have the necessary talent in what they're trying to do? The Line, mega project, Neom, mega project. Now they've got FIFA, another mega project, Expo, another mega project. They have to execute. All eyes are on them. And I don't see them necessarily slowing down or, compared to the UAE. I think in their own right, again, they're not, not apples. They're both not apples.
That's a really good
Um,
yeah. That's
I really feel in their own right, they are executing the best they can and making decisions quickly.
mm,
And I'm always comparing to the UK. Prime example, December 2022, I think it was, or December 2021. The Crown Prince, the
mm,
government straight away announced from January 2023, 2022, sorry, the weekdays are Monday to Friday.
mm.
Like, just made that decision
Done.
in 3 weeks
Mm,
and over Christmas. Well, okay,
mm,
they don't have Christmas here,
mm.
but that's just an amazing decision and make it quick, and that's it. In the UK, you'd probably have them
My goodness.
still going to Parliament, still discussing in only 10 years. So
Mm,
what they both have in which is a massive, massive positive is
mm,
they're able to make decisions quickly.
mm, mm,
Like for example, you know, how they are what they're trying to do with semi-reducing the line. So they'll make those decisions quickly.
mm,
Again, so if we talk about those three mega projects, they need the talent. They need, you know, because the Saudis don't have, no country has ever done what they're trying to do.
exactly.
No country in this world has that. So they need that different experience. And yes, they will need the consulting. So I don't know if I agree totally with your statement.
Mm,
The layer of the consulting firms, the partners slowing it down per se,
mm,
because there is no possibility for them to slow. They have to deliver on FIFA. They have to deliver on Expo. These two definitely. Now, obviously, they have a bit of, you know, flexibility with Neon because that's their own project. But these two, they're going to have to deliver, and they will. Of course, they will.
It's almost like what you're saying as well as speed is relative, right? So when you
Yes.
compare, it's almost like if you comparing, many of the countries here in the GCC region, it's almost like are you the fastest or slowest Lamborghini? But you're still a Lamborghini when you compare
Cool.
yourself to the UK or New Zealand. I mean, I was reading an article back in my previous hometown in Auckland, where I've got a property, an apartment, and they're building it's about to finish an underground, which is connecting sort of two train networks. And I was reading the article. So it's finished, let's say it finishes in 2026. And they were talking about how the project was first conceptualized in 1920. So that's 106 years ago, right? So it's all relative. I mean, they're the turtles and the tortoises,
Of
and
course.
over here is the Lamborghinis, right?
And we could just see from the Burj Khalifa,
It's
right? How
crazy.
long, did that take? And such a huge, amazing looking building, right? In my view.
It's incredible.
Um,
Fun fact, I was actually researching the tower that they're building here,
yeah.
right? Which they're going to call the female Burj, I think.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, so they've
Okay.
allocated 3.2 billion US dollars to the project just
Yep.
across the road. And I was looking at how much did the Burj cost in current day dollars, and it would cost 2.8. What I found sorry to interrupt as well, but what I found really interesting is guess how much the Dubai Mall cost in US dollars compared to the Burj?
Four?
Exactly. So I would have thought it would have been either similar or
Yes.
less than the Burj. The Dubai Mall cost 20 billion US dollars, including I'm assuming including the infrastructure
Wow.
around it. Well, anyway, ChatGPT told me that. And I questioned it
Yeah,
again. I was
yeah,
like, are
yeah.
you sure that's right?
20. Wow.
20, whereas the Burj in current day dollars was about, I think it was 2.5, two point
Wow.
six billion US dollars. So, I mean, these are huge projects.
And they're
Sorry to
expanding, and they're
interrupt.
expanding, right?
Yeah.
But that's a big project in itself, right?
Mm,
And what they've created, right? So, so to your question, the talent that you need sort of you do need these consulting
mm,
firms to really take it forward.
mm,
And then it's just build, operate, and then obviously transfer. And what I had seen as well is some of the partners or the senior execs in these consulting firms are actually moving across into and being being fully employed
mm,
by these entities, whether it's the government entities or some of the corporate entities. And that's the best way, really, right? When then you can really then execute faster because once it's sort of built, let's have that knowledge management transfer. And
mm,
why not? Let's just hire who sort of built it
mm.
to
Yeah, I agree, but I also disagree a little bit. And I think you're right. At those individuals who then become embedded within the business, ex consultants come into the business, they become more empowered to be able to execute. But I think there's also a flip side of that, and that from what I've seen, certainly in financial services, is they then tend to just bring in more consultants as
Their
well.
own and
Yeah,
their
their
own.
own consultants.
100%
Yeah,
agree.
and
100%
I
agree.
kind of struggle with that, especially when I see C-suite that are. It's always a major red flag for me. You've got a CEO who's ex McKinsey, ex BCG, ex EY, whatever. I don't have a problem with that, but what I have a problem with is how that then filters down to the culture and the culture of hiring, and then the culture of using, you know. Anyway, look, I could go on all
No, no,
day about that. So
100%.
yeah,
And I think a lot, and we've seen they will employ consulting sometimes to reduce the risk or the responsibility
exactly.
of an action. And that's
Exactly.
where I don't
Exactly.
agree with that
Yeah.
because
So
that slows
executive
it down.
endurance. Yeah.
And I've seen where it's in blue ink and literally they're just turning it into black ink.
Hmm.
It's literally just, and it's just the board sometimes just need that sort of, okay, if it goes well, great. If it doesn't, let's just blame the
Ah,
consulting firm. So, and
100%.
that does slow it down.
Mm.
I have seen that. Yeah, for sure. On
But
that point.
I mean, you're at the pointy end, right? So, I would put what you do in, corporate venture capital, that piece is the real pointy end of execution, right? It's
Mm,
the prototyping, it's the deep ethnography of understanding what the market needs,
yeah.
that building that and then executing. I have an interesting question. I think that everyone's talking AI, blah blah blah. I'd like to stay away from it, but you can't. And I think we're foolish not to talk about it, especially when I have you on the show as well, because you have such a good understanding of that whole corporate venture space. So, how double? All my questions are just all over the show, right? So I'll just leave it to you. But the corporate venturing piece and the prototyping piece, what I'm interested in is how do you see AI impacting that part of the consulting industry? I'm saying it's, in my view, it's part of the consulting industry. You can sort of, push back on that. But how do you see AI impacting that part, specifically around, say, prototyping? If you look at what's happening with Firebase, with Google, vibe coding, that whole kind of um, reduction of time from ideation, design, product, delivery, go live, right? How do you see AI impacting that space? And then as a second question, how do you see AI impacting the entire more traditional side of consulting and almost empowering leaders, business leaders, C-suite to be able to access in-depth execution methodologies? I mean, look, I can hop on ChatGPT now and I can say, build me a McKinsey-esque strategy for digital transformation for my wealth management company that has 30 employees. I want you also to create 5 different prototypes for online trading, cryptocurrency trading, blah, blah, blah. I can go on forever. How do you see it being deployed in what you're doing around corporate venture capital? And how do you see AI being impacting sort of the wider traditional
Yeah,
consultancy industry?
sure.
Questions, right? Just tiny
No,
questions.
of course. We got 5 hours, right?
We've got 5 hours.
No, so I think let me start with I think the easy. Well, I think the one which is more a bit more black and white. I think with traditional consulting, let's be honest. I think if you and I think that a consultant is not using AI, we're not waking up.
Exactly.
Everyone has to have been using it or using it to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
Funny story. Um, I was obviously in my previous last tenure with who I was working for. We were going out to tender, and one of the I'm not going to name the name, but one of the consulting firms was presenting to us. What do they have on one of the tabs? ChatGPT. Like it's just there. Now, for me, we all know it, but to have ChatGPT there in you're like, okay, so we're going to potentially pay you X amount, but you've just used ChatGPT. We all know we have to use it
Mm-hmm.
to brainstorm,
Mm-hmm.
to utilize better ideas, innovative ideas. But I think when it's there, it was a very the big red flag because you can't just have it in the forefront of a presentation,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So I think it's definitely going to be there as an enabler. We need, they all say, and I totally agree, AI is not going to really take over everyone's role. It's going to take over the people who are not enabling it correctly.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
And everyone, look, I'm not saying anything new. A lot of people are actually saying that. And I agree. You have to be with the times, understand how you can utilize them, whether it's cloud, whether it's, ChatGPT, whether it's Anthropic,
Mm.
all of those. You just have to see, and I don't know if you've also used, going slightly off topic, but
Mm.
Notebook LLM. Have you used that? How
Mm-hmm.
amazing is
Mm-hmm.
that?
That's incredible.
It's just another way of learning. But how amazing. But, so to your question on traditional consulting, yes, I think at the lower levels it will slightly reduce if I'm going to be there is going to be some haircuts at the bottom,
Mm.
if I'm going to be honest.
Mm.
But I still think you still need that one-on-one interaction. You still need that relationship, especially in this region.
Mm.
I feel maybe potentially US, UK, maybe not, but especially in this region, you still have to have that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe anytime soon that they're just going to be relying on AI just for consulting, in my view. I mean, you know how it is. And even in Saudi, it's just relation. Let's go have a coffee. Let's meet. Let's speak. Even the Emiratis, it's like that.
Mm.
And obviously, as us as expats, we have to obviously make sure we're adhering to what the culture is here. So, to your question on the traditional aspect, yes, the consulting firms are enabling it.
Mm.
They are allowing it, but just need to make sure they're careful, like not making sure it's there in the presentation on a tab, because then it's like, okay, how much of this presentation did he actually write,
Mm.
for example, right? So from the traditional, that's still what I feel. Now, from corporate venture capital, you need to understand AI, right? You
Mm.
need to go deep and ask the right questions. What is making your LLM so unique?
Mm.
Can you be, ousted in a week when someone else can create that? As we were just talking about creating an app. I think there's one called. I remember you posted something about you and your son
Yeah,
had
on
you
Firebase.
and
Yeah, yeah,
Firebase.
and
Yeah, yeah.
he vibe coded a fully functioning app with integrated Firebase, integrated Gemini, integrated WhatsApp DB, and lead generation platform in 45 minutes over Pizza Hut. And I watched it, and he's 17.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's
And it
just.
worked, and he could have deployed it to directly to the Android store.
So let's put this scenario, right? And you could have done that.
Mm.
Then and I'm sure it looked amazing.
Mm.
And then he could have gone to a VC and say, look, this is my product.
Mhm.
Now, if the VCs aren't asking the right questions,
Mm.
they're going to be investing in something which they have no clue about.
Mm.
So for me, the AI is not necessarily going to take over a role in venture capital or corporate venture capital.
Mm.
The decision makers really need to understand what they're investing in.
Mm.
Really, for me now, the key is the DD, the due diligence.
Well said.
You're gonna need
Mhm.
the experts, with the PhDs potentially,
Mm.
to really go into how good are the LLMs? What's unique about them?
Mm.
Can someone just, and there's another app called Lovable that just create an app and, you know, is there an actual business?
Mm.
Some of them, yes, if there's a real use case and you get first user advantage and, you can accelerate your growth. So, and yes, there are ways of, doing background research. You've got so many different, there was one where it can really just speed up the DD on a company, but
Mm.
it's not going to speed up the DD potentially on understanding the LLMs. Well, I may be proven wrong. There could be an app coming out
Mm.
which can focus on understanding how good the LLMs are of an AI company
Mm.
potentially.
Mm.
So I think in sort of my role, if you per se in the venture space, I think less will need to be compared to the consulting side, but it's more about understanding it deeper, really understanding, because most companies are just using AI for this. Are just mentioning AI. I met a startup last week, and their business was around making sure pharmacies have enough medicines stocked up,
Mm.
but also then understanding which medicines are authentic. So I don't know if you know, in Africa,
Mm.
70% of medicines are fraudulent.
Was the guy Lavan?
What's the startup called?
I can't remember. It's in Kenya.
Yes, it's in Kenya.
Yeah.
Okay, we might.
Yeah. Did you? Who did you meet with?
Mohammed, is it? It might be. No, they're based here. Sorry, they're based in a part of an accelerator. So, but there
Okay.
is.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
There's a company in Kenya that I'm familiar with that is doing exactly the same around counterfeits,
yes.
goods, and the whole supply
Is it
chain.
with a sticker on top of the product?
No, no, it's
Okay.
not. No, it's not. But yeah, sorry, fascinating.
Yeah, no, and
Yeah.
I was just saying to him, look, and he was telling me he's using AI. I said, okay,
Mm.
but how are you using AI?
Mm.
let's not greenwash AI.
So true. So true.
So are you just a fulfillment sort of system,
Mm,
or are you actually using AI for the benefit?
mm,
Because a lot of people are now understanding if you're not really using AI,
mm.
then let's not mention AI. And
Exactly.
on the flip side, there's another startup which I introduced to someone, and they're doing amazing stuff. So they're reducing the time for an SME to effectively get approved their funding from a bank,
Okay.
because the longest time that it takes is the credit risk modeling and understanding, are they going to default?
Mm,
And it's that credit risk modeling team
mm,
in the bank which can take 2 to 3 months because they have to do the modeling, etc.
mm,
This company can reduce the time to days
mm,
because of their LLMs, right? And I introduced him to someone, and I was really impressed because he never once used AI.
mm,
His company is an AI company. He says because too many people are greenwashing.
mm,
And I didn't. I said, but your USP is the AI because it's reducing. But he used every word apart from AI.
mm.
And then I met another company, part of the AI summit. So they're effectively the Tinder for sort of talent.
Okay.
So you swipe left, right. They're using AI and blockchain.
Mm,
So first of all, why are you using blockchain?
mm,
Oh, because information is sensitive. What about LinkedIn?
mm,
Do you need to be on the chain? Is there a requirement? Number one. And what's your AI? Oh, it's just, so they, if the company, what they want to choose, they want to choose someone who's, an expert in
mm.
fintech. So then it
So
will,
it's a matching algorithm, and that's it.
but that's just a filtering process.
Exactly.
It's not AI,
Exactly.
so it's just fascinating.
It's interesting. It's bringing me back many memories. So the first company I ever founded and exited way too early was in 2016, a company called Switch. It was a fantastic company. Stupidest thing I've ever done in my life. One of the stupidest things. That and riding motorbikes. I was exiting that company. And, I could very comfortably go back and talk about it. And this is, 2014, 2013, talk about it as an AI company. But it was actually advanced analytics, SQL,
Mm,
bulk data
mm, mm.
extracts, smart people writing, smart filters to be able to then execute on a clear problem that we were trying to solve. And I would love to say it was an AI company because I
Yeah.
exited an AI company in 2015, and how smart I was. But it was actually advanced analytics, and I think that's really the key. Like you say, people get it muddled, and I can understand why they would. Right? I can understand why you'd change your domain name to
Mm,
.ai. I
mm.
get that because it's where the money is at the moment. But we really need to be very honest around how are we applying AI. I did a course in 2019. I was very, very lucky that the bank that I work for paid for me to do a course
Nice.
at Berkeley, which was
Amazing.
artificial intelligence for leaders.
Amazing.
And yeah, we spent a lot about going into the code side, going into understanding the various types of algorithms, the learning models, et cetera, et cetera. But fundamentally, the core of that course in 2019 was not so much around the technology, it was around how you deploy artificial
Mm.
intelligence and how you create value. And when you, how I've applied it in various businesses and banks in particular is really simply to kind of segueing a little bit here to break your business into front end, back end. What does the customer see, and what do you actually do as a business? And if you can simplify the deployment of AI in those two areas of your business, it starts to become much more simpler. And then if you go, okay, I'm just going to pick 3 areas for my customers that I can effectively automate, right? Which is what AI is. It's an automation tool that I can automate. I'm going to pick 3 use cases that's going to deliver something faster, cheaper, better for my customers. And I'm going to create 3 use cases in the back end that are going to make it faster, cheaper, better for me. You have a really simple springboard into using AI for your business. And then obviously you need to deal with how bad your data is, your customer data, your back-end data, your infrastructure. Those are all kind of the pieces for the highly intelligent people.
Mm.
But if as a leader you can do that, you can effectively have a business that has AI embedded,
Yeah.
but you don't need to become an AI company
No,
for
no, no.
that.
No, 100%. And now we obviously, this as well, agentic AI is huge,
Mm.
right? And it's obviously AI, but what it's doing is just fantastic. It's just speeding up the process. And you're right. It's understanding where can I reduce the time and just make it automated. And again, it's not necessarily cutting manpower
No,
because you'll still need
it's
that,
not.
but it's just making it more efficient because then potentially that person could be actually working on, a potential issue with the customer, with customer support, even though that is also going to be sort of AI driven as well. But it's
But you know what, Matan? Like, to be honest, I think it's nice to say that it doesn't have to be. And I know you're being pragmatic here around cutting manpower, but if I could have in fact, I met with one of the founders of Viber. If you're familiar with Viber, so it was bought by Rakuten. It was like WhatsApp. It
mm,
was an Israeli company
mm,
when it was first created. So messaging app. And I met with one of the founders of that over a decade ago. And at, when I met him, he was talking about his vision for his next business. He'd exited Viber and he was kind of moving into different businesses. His goal was to have a business with no people.
mm.
And
So what year was that?
this is what, it was 10 years ago, right?
Wow.
2015, right?
Wow.
That was a complex business with deep intellectual property that had no people. And you know what? I'm sorry, but I'm completely aligned to that. All of my problems in business and trying to do something have revolved around people. And I mean, people are the biggest problem. I'm the biggest problem. Often it was probably just me that was the
Uh,
problem. But yes, of course, we need people, we need ideas. I want to again, let's come back to CVC, right? So the corporate venture capital. And the part that I know, because I'm more on the tech side, is the prototyping, right? So rapid prototyping of some form of tool for a corporate or some kind of product service function, right? Now, let's just look at the front end part, front end developers, app developers, whether you're an iOS, Android developer, or just, hopefully the business has migrated to Flutter where you can do one code and execute and deploy, continuous implementation, continuous delivery, DevOps, all of those kind of fancy things that technology dev teams have tried to get
mm,
to make things better, faster, cheaper, have actually cloud, we've moved from on-prem to hybrid to cloud and
mm,
blah, blah, blah. They've actually, in my experience, they've actually created more cost, more complexity, and more time to market through having more talented people within the business, right? Even a fully DevOps tech team, which is doing, CI/CD delivery, it's still complex and it still requires people. If you can remove, let's just say app developers, which is what effectively vibe coding
yeah,
is.
yeah.
So you're a smart guy, right? I have absolutely no qualms whatsoever setting up a business with you tomorrow and going, you can come up with a problem that's out there. You can figure out what that solution is. You can articulate it
Mm,
into a business requirement document, a product requirement document, and with the right prompts that you could probably learn in a couple of weeks, right? It's probably sitting down with your 6-year-old son and my
exactly.
17-year-old son, you could deploy the most fantastic problem solving application that could then go to market in a very short period of time. So you don't actually need these front end app developers because you deal with a front end app developer. And this is why I think that they should be removed out of the business. You don't need them because when you talk to them, they don't think like you.
Yeah.
They think differently. They think, regardless of where they're coming from, what their cultural background is, they think, how do I keep my job?
Mm,
Right? And they're thinking from a technical mindset on how you can't do something. Whereas you, coming from the business
mhm.
mindset, is how can I do
I
this?
can make that.
But you empower you with all of the tools to be able to then write the code in a very short period of time. That person doesn't belong in a business.
Yeah. No, look, it's a valid point. I mean,
You belong with your 6-year-old son and my 17-year-old son
in
creating
a
a
dynamic,
unicorn.
yeah. I mean, you saw the statement from Sam Altman maybe a year ago. He's got a bet with him and his chums that soon there'll be a unicorn with just one person,
Mm-hmm,
a one-person business, a unicorn.
mm-hmm,
I think it's gonna happen, right? It's nearly there. I know there's some companies which I read during the weekend that they have limited of around 10 to 15 people, but
mm-hmm.
they're at 600 million ARR.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, astonishing, right?
Mm.
Yeah, look, it's okay. Yeah, it's a valid point. Maybe it's just it is quite black and white.
Yeah.
But I just feel yeah, it's people and but look, I think that's it's the way forward. So do we need a pragmatic? Unless they're not pragmatic, then yeah, we need to. But do you do? I still think you'll still need someone to oversee that, whether it's not a whole team, just one person overseeing what's coming out of the app, right?
Mm.
Because I'm
Completely.
not obviously a coder. I'm not sure if you are. So
Mm.
what's not in there? Because some look, I have a friend who's creating a voice generative AI, right? So when a new software comes into the business, it's a tutorial, but it's voice recognition, so it'll take you through a tour. And there was one point where the feedback was it was giving another name. For as an example, it wasn't selling the enterprise.
Mm.
Humans make mistakes as well.
Mm. Mm.
So, 95% of the time, if you're having an AI which is going to reduce the margin, but the efficiency because it's 24/7,
Mm.
but they're 95% correct. But that 5% can sometimes, that's why I
That could
still
really trip
think
you up.
with the coding, there could be a loop where someone can gain the back end. So you still, in my view, still need to have that oversight. Not necessarily someone saying what can't be done, but that oversight in what's correct or not, but not allowing them to be the blocker. So
Mm.
yeah, to that point, that's
Yeah,
important.
I completely agree. And that's where I think you have to triage your your business. And if I think sort of my previous role as a CEO of a bank, I think there was 11 departments within the business, right? And if you are really honest with yourself now with technology, and that this is a year ago since I was the CEO of that bank, I could look at it now comfortably and say, marketing gone,
Mm,
legal gone. I mean, you can effectively automate those pieces. Finance definitely coming. Front end developers gone. Middle, so all of your API
yeah.
integrations gone. Back end, yes, you need your back end, you need your cybersecurity,
Yeah.
you need you need that deep tech knowledge, technological knowledge.
Mm, mm,
Risk, absolutely,
mm.
right?
Yeah.
Risk
Yeah.
compliance, because that's one of those pieces within business that is nuanced, right? And you need the human. So I think risk is absolutely critical. And maybe this is almost justifying or arguing against my point before around consultants strategy.
Mm.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
right? That kind of human component, business strategy, tech strategy, future proofing the business. I think the strategy part is really critical. But sales, yeah, probably.
And we're just
Yeah,
referring to technology companies,
yeah,
right? So if we're talking about full-blown, uh, you know, physical asset companies, you're still going to need those,
absolutely,
so we're just
absolutely.
obviously focusing on technology, which is where a lot of businesses are. But you do have the other array, which, you need building, someone is building, you need
Mm.
someone to serve a coffee, you need someone to make a coffee. Saying that we've seen robots also making those as well. So
I want to segue into the spiritual side in a
yeah.
moment,
Mm.
because that's something I really want to talk to you about. But just a question, which is always a nice sort of segue because, talking about our kids, right? I've had my son over here for the last couple of weeks, as you know, and one of the big parts was having a look at universities, right? So both universities here in the UAE and also vocational, institutions here, and comparing them. So he's thinking about coming back to Dubai, and then comparing them to say New Zealand, where he lives, but also looking at just the the kind of environment, the tertiary education environment globally as well. He ended up doing an internship for a week. Token 2049 is here in
Mm.
Dubai, so he did an internship with
Nice.
one of the technology companies,
Amazing.
and he did a little survey on one of the events that he was at. 17-year-old guy, just asking these people. He asked everyone whether they went to university and whether they are applying their university knowledge to what they were doing now in the Web3 space. He got a home run, 20 out of 20. Every single person said they weren't applying any of their knowledge that they'd learned in university. And not one person suggested that he goes to university. It's really interesting, right? So now, if he'd said that to me 6 months ago, I would have said categorically, mate, you need to go to university. It's a pathway. It's an insurance policy. It's a requirement. Even if you're looking to, come here and take a senior exec role here in the UAE, you're going to need to have a degree just for your visa. But I'm starting to wonder, do you really need
Mm.
tertiary education? I was listening to him. He was telling me about how, I won't say him, but how his friends use AI at school, right? And you think of it just like you were using the example of the consultancy, the consultants that you were reviewing, and they had ChatGPT open on as a tab. We assume that that's some form of manipulation or cheating, but actually, I was listening to how his friends use AI for school, and it's much deeper than that. So yeah, they may use one of the kind of main ones, ChatGPT or Grok as an example to kind of they may, let's just say it's a exam question, right? To interrogate that particular question, to then extract information. But then they're extracting the information and they're not just chucking it in as an answer. They're then putting it in tools like Quillbot and some other kind of paraphrasing tools to be able to understand and also reference other sources of information to learn. And then they're taking that information and then they're putting it into the answer. Now, if you think about it from a critical thinking perspective, that is much better than
Yeah.
what I used to do around rote learning. You're inputting to understand, you're then digesting the information, you're then paraphrasing, you're then sourcing additional
Mm.
information, and then you're taking it and you're putting it in your own words. There has to be some form of maybe convoluted learning model there that's
100%.
happening. Do you think, especially for your kids, right, 6 years old, I think do you think your kids are going to go to university? And do you think they should?
Two things come to mind. I don't know if you're aware, yesterday, the Deputy Prime Minister, His Excellency, Mohammed, announced that AI will be in the curriculum from kindergarten all the way up to
Mhm.
pre-university. It's going to be compulsory,
And so it should.
and so it should.
Mhm.
And I think they're one of the first countries maybe to do that.
Mhm.
So, which is amazing. Then the second point that came to mind, I was listening to someone who was telling me that in the US, he's sending his child to an AI school.
Mm,
What is that?
mm,
That's basically where we all know every student learns at a different speed and has a different capability. This AI tutor for 2 hours will increase his ability to take in more. So if they're at grade one and they're able to learn at a speed and a volume and the context of a grade five, the AI will adapt for 2 hours.
mhm.
Then the rest of the time, it's all on soft skills, which I found is just amazing.
That's brilliant.
Would I risk my children to do for my son and daughter? I'm not sure yet.
Mhm.
Now going to your question, university, is it? Look, my son, well, he's 6, my daughter's 9.
Mm,
So we're looking 10 years until my daughter goes. I don't know what the world will look like.
mm, mm,
My son, as I mentioned at the beginning, has a huge passion for football.
mm,
Maybe that's the only I'm not sorry, that's not the only route, but that's
mm,
one of the only, sort of careers, passions that
mm,
is not going to be fully affected by AI.
mm.
Not saying he becomes a footballer because we don't know how the world is going to be in 10 years, but it's a good question. Do I think university degree? I don't know. Is an honest answer. It's 10 years. We've seen how technology advanced in just 2 years.
Mhm.
We've obviously gone to university. We've been there. I don't know. It's a really hard question because we want to do the best by our kids.
Mm,
Obviously, we all do, right? But at the same time, for me, what your son is, a very mature, he done his research, what he's doing, and obviously you being a pragmatic father.
mm.
Um, it's not that you're not going to want the best by them not going, but yeah, it's a difficult one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to put my prejudices on it as well. And having gone to university, I had a great time at university,
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
just partied, and I took an extra year. That's how good my grades were. It took me an extra year to fill all of my credits. It was a challenging time, but I had a wonderful time at university. So even from a social point of view, that's kind of social and
Yes,
network.
yes,
I
yes,
think
yes.
that's really critical. But yeah, I'm really wondering whether it's the right thing to do. Onto the spiritual side,
Yeah.
right? We have family here in the UAE. We're, trying to keep fit, trying to eat well. What's next for you? Obviously we need to pay the bills. We need to stay relevant. We need to stay relevant from a technology perspective here. But what about, keeping relevant spiritually here in the UAE? I mean, how do you do that? And,
Hmm.
and what's next for you?
Good question. Look, I think it's something which is really dear to my heart,
Mm.
spirituality. So my wife and I are part of a spiritual organization called Chinmay Mission. Actually,
Sorry, it's
it's
what?
called Chinmay Mission. It's
Okay.
a global spiritual organization
Mm.
based
Like
on,
Vipassana or something like
yeah,
that? Or
it's all encompassing.
okay.
It's based on the ancient Hindu philosophy,
Mm.
on the Vedas, and we have 300 centers across the world.
Wow.
And it's a spiritual organization which allows you to effectively understand you better.
Mm.
And obviously, the base is Vedanta, the science of Vedanta. It's a movement on science of
Mm.
Vedanta. Um, and I didn't attend to find a wife, just to be clear to you and the audiences. But we we met there and we had
Mm.
the commonalities of what we wanted to
Mm.
pursue. And it's honestly, it's given us everything.
Mm.
And I can't imagine my life without that,
Mm.
without the learnings of that. And it's not that, and just again, to be clear, it's not that, oh, this is the top one. Every organization, religion, spiritual organization all goes the same path to make us a better people,
Mm.
make us a better person,
Mm.
to be better in life. And this is what I'm learning through that. So, yeah, my wife and I met this, through we call it a yagna. Yagna is where
Yagna.
yeah, it's a discourse
Mm.
where thousands of people come together
Mm.
and someone is sort of talking on spirituality, and
Mm.
then that's where my wife and I met.
Mm.
And ever since then, we've been fully involved in there, and I've been involved in helping with sort of fundraising, helping with organizing such as these events as well.
Mm.
Um,
What are the what? Sorry, before we get into that, what are the core foundations? If you were to kind
Spreading
of
happiness.
describe it as if I was a 2-year-old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so effectively, the motto of the Chinmay mission is
Mm.
maximum happiness for maximum number of people, and
Mm.
spreading that and understanding.
Mm.
That's the effective motto.
Mm.
Because
But how does it give you the tools to achieve
of
that?
course it does.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. And the tools are where you're always discussing, you're always understanding more through knowledge,
Mm.
to understand what is our mind. Our mind is just thoughts.
Mm.
We have thousands of thoughts on a daily basis.
Mm.
Probably 99% of them generally are not great. And we want to change that. We want to change that because we want to make sure that we're always thinking positive, because then that also links into our happiness.
Mm.
Every person in this world, their innate nature is happiness.
Mm.
But what doesn't allow them to see that is the mind and the thoughts that they want this, they want. And again, Shinmay Mission and other organization, entities, spiritual religion is not saying not to go out and get wealth. It's
Mm.
not saying that at all. And that's another misconception in my view,
Mm.
that you can't be spiritual and accumulate a lot of wealth. But it's when that those thoughts are around greed of wealth,
Mm.
which then agitates your mind. And it's very hard in being such an material, amazing material country like the UAE, where you're seeing lots of amazing things
Mm.
and but it's that greed which really
Mm.
affects your mind, that okay, I want this,
Mm.
and then your mind gets agitated, and then you're so further away from happiness.
Mm.
Oh, so it's about grounding yourself and saying, one, I'm grateful for what I have right now. I'm grateful that I'm in this amazing country.
Mm.
I'm grateful we're all healthy. And yes, we want to be successful. And it's never saying that. And strive to be successful. Strive to do the best in what you are going to do in your life, and just do your best.
Mm.
And the tools are given through whether it's the Vedas or the holy book, the Bhagavad Gita, or other tools that are given. And so the head of the Chinmay mission, his name is Swami Sarupananda. He's developed this self-development course based on spirituality, and it's around how we can utilize spirituality to transform our minds. Because again, coming back to our minds, we've all heard this. Our minds is our best friend and our deadliest enemy.
Mhm.
You know, it's that state of mind. And if we can be in that positive state of mind, and this course I went in 2017, and it was the most transformative course
Mhm.
because what this course does is it's called Make It Happen, and it allows you to
Make
make it happen.
make it
Make it
happen.
happen. And it allows you to really understand your purpose. The analogy given is you have, for example, a dog and a donkey. Let's get, and here's an example. You have a dog to play around, to take for walks, to play fetch. Great. That's generally what a dog's, you know. And then a donkey, for example, is just take stuff up a mountain,
Mhm.
you know, go to, you know, as an example, right? Just being general. Now, you could have a donkey as a pet. Of course you can. But is it the purpose? You could potentially have the dog to take stuff up a mountain.
Mm.
But is that the purpose of the dog?
Mm.
It's not. So the point of this is once you find your purpose, you can really accelerate and be in that flow state. So make it happen really makes you dive deep into what are you good at? Why are you good at that? What if money was no object,
Mm.
any constraint? What would you like to do? And with that, what also the course allows you to go deeper is what are your potential limiting beliefs
Mm.
or your negative associations that you have with certain things?
Mm.
Then that comes, remember I told you back to the thought process when you were 0 to 8 and my son having some thoughts. So
Mm.
once we are, because we generally in our day-to-day life, we're just obviously going from one place to another. And to really understand that we have to be quiet in our minds,
Mm.
to really take time out for our minds and reflect. And stuff is there, but we're not listening to certain aspects of our subconscious mind. And we can only do that through a number of tools. And Make It Happen teaches us on really to take those weeds out. And the course is not necessarily about, oh, I'm going through something. And yeah, it does help people who are going through certain things in their life, but also for people who are successful
Yeah.
that can 10x their success because they just need something, a minor tweak to their mind that is stopping them creating that 10x success, whether it's wealth or success in their business. I mean, and we have these courses in India and Australia and UK and the US.
Matan, you said something really important, and I think, the UAE is generally a pretty positive, aspirational society, right? And you said something really important that these types of courses and protocols are not just there for when things are not going well, right? In fact, in my view, they actually work better when everything's going well. And if you think about the UAE, because it's such an aspirational kind of place, right? It doesn't matter whether you're local, whether you're a expat, people are aspiring to be better. And also, if there's ever a place in the world that you can be better, you
Hmm.
don't have the state involved and taxation and kind of all of those tentacles that hold you back, whether it's for, you know, political reasons or egalitarian reasons. Here in the UAE, you just don't have it, right? It's you can perform. So if you can apply these types of models to, effectively what it is a race car ready to go, this is the place. But the way you're explaining this, it's starting to resonate with me. It sounds very similar in some parts to, say, Ikigai. I don't know if you've heard, I talked a lot about Ikigai,
I've
the
seen that.
Japanese
Yeah,
premise.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So
yes, yes.
the kind of four areas of, what do you love? What are you good at? What can you get paid for, right? Whether that's paid for to acquire more things or paid to exist, and also what has a purpose. And then within that, you have your purpose, right? And that's, Ikigai, I think, was kind of conceptualized in the 60s.
Japanese, I think you
Yeah, it's
say, right? Yeah,
Japanese. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
relatively new. And where does this this make it happen model? Where was it born, right? What's the lineage? And then maybe you can take us through to, what are the timelines around launching it here in the UAE as well?
Yeah, look, I think I just want to give you an example
Mm.
actually. And you mentioned about the passion, what you're good at, and a really great um example. One of the attendees, his name was I don't mention his name, I'm
Mm.
sure he was mine. His name is Sohan Desai. And you'll know why I'm going to mention his name.
Mm.
Real passion for cricket.
Mm.
Absolute passion for cricket. Loved everything about it. didn't quite just make the mark, just to play for the Indian team. So the course allowed him to think, okay, has to be something related or linked to cricket. So he's obviously gone through that journey, and the mind is saying, "I'm not good enough to be a cricketer. What can I do?" But the course allows you to, okay, this is what I'm good at. This is
Mm.
what I love doing. And Swami Swarupananda sort of advised him and said, do something that's linked to cricket. You love that? Okay. For whatever reason, you weren't able to play for the cricket
Mm.
team.
Mm.
What's his role right now? He's the head strengthening and fitness coach for the Indian cricket team.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
So an amazing story. And it's successful. Look, he's won a World Cup. He just won the Champions Trophy here in Dubai, which happened 2 months ago.
Mm.
And look, and this is one of many stories of successful people who've come out, who've attended the course and done something.
Mm.
So, it's and as the course says, it's from success to significance.
Mm. Mm.
It's
I
it's
love it.
you know
I love it.
it's that's what the course depicts, and it's going to be a 5-day course here in the UAE,
Mm-hmm.
open to all. The base to your question, what is the base? So this was conceived by the head of the Chinmay mission, name is
Mm-hmm.
Swami Swarupananda,
Mm.
in making something which is open to all. It's not open to specific religions. It's open. We've had number of religion. It's just open to
Mm.
anyone.
Mm.
The basis is on the ancient Hindu scriptures,
Mm.
but he takes us on this course, which is just so open, and it's so anyone can relate to it,
Mm.
because that's how amazing for me. He's my spiritual guru, Swami Swarupananda is. Um, and he just makes you really dive deep. And look, when you're diving deep, there are some stuff which is going to come out, and you're not going to like.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, there's traumas hidden
But
away.
yeah, of course. And some you've really suppressed. Sometimes you really suppress some of these things.
Mm.
Coming back to that 0 to 8, and that's when we're really these thoughts where are truth or untruth, which we really suppress and take them as truth, and that's made us make certain decisions or react in a certain way. And once they're out, I mean, for me, I'm still going through that journey. Everyone's going through that journey, and I'm, still unweeding, but it's a process.
Mm.
It's a process, and he gives you the tools to do that on a daily basis,
Mm.
to really go deep into yourself, really understand yourself.
Mm.
And then, you're in this flow state. And for me, what came out of this course was, so I went on this course, and what came out of this was I like helping companies grow. That's where I feel I'm on this universe.
Mm.
I generally feel in this moment, in this time is stopped when I'm helping companies through whatever strategy, investment,
Mm.
growth. I just feel I'm in this flow state. And I honestly believe this is why I'm on this earth. And um, that's why, what I want to do, what I'm doing, is related to that. So, and, just happy, to be knowing that this is why I'm on this universe,
Mm.
and having that faith, because it comes down to also certain negativity, that the confidence in oneself, or why you're on this earth, of who you are, but it's being happy and confident in what you're good at, what you want to do,
Mm.
and just have faith in yourself and the higher power. Of course, are they one? That's another discussion, but it's just having that faith in oneself, that why you're on this earth.
I have a final question, but I just want to and that's around, what is you talked about from success to significance, and I want to finish off with your thoughts around significance, and whether it's significance, the concept, or the significance to you. What is significance to you, because you're on that journey to that at the moment. But I wonder, this is not a plug for Dubai. Look, I'm an embarrassing fanboy of this place. I love this
Me
place.
too.
I come from a culture that is incredibly repressed, male culture that revolves around, so I was born in the UK, spent most of my life in New Zealand. There's a culture that's built around drinking, being a man, being tough, which is ironic because I'm not that tough guy, that sort of quintessential New Zealand guy. Play rugby, get into fights, blah, blah, blah. That one thing I love about being here, and I think it's being here in the UAE is geographically, it's obviously close to the subcontinent, right? And so what you're getting is you're getting a lot of spiritual influence there, right? And, our listeners may not realize this, but the UAE, I think in the 1975, the local currency was the rupee before
Mm,
they moved on to the dirham.
mm,
So there's this huge influence here in the UAE. And what you get with that is you get this connectivity with spiritualism, you get accessibility to these kind of types of, whether it's a specific course, whether it's, my wife did Vipassana, 10 days, no talking, which I don't know
mm.
how she did, out in Ras Al Khaimah. There's accessibility to that, whether it's, like you say, whether it's religious, whether it's spirituality. There's so much diversity here. But most importantly, there is acceptance.
100%.
And that acceptance for a grown man to go, you know what? I want to get in touch with my spiritual side. I want to explore different types of models, regardless of whether they've come from a religious background or it's some form of more you know um, modern teaching.
Mm,
And here you have that accessibility, you have that acceptance, and you have that depth of um, I don't know, depth of history and access to
yeah.
those kind of those very deep ancient wisdoms as well. And you know, I'm keen to get your thoughts on that, but also if you can kind of give us an idea as to, again, that success to significance. What is your significance? I think that would be a really wonderful way to close out today.
Sure. So your first question was the access here, right?
Mm,
And openness. And look, I've never felt more proud to be Indian than I ever have. For me, and it could just be me.
mm,
But in the UK, I felt I had to sort of semi-suppress
mm,
my Indianism.
mm.
I'm not saying people were racist. I'm just saying it's, maybe that was just the culture of not,
Xenophobia, maybe, rather than
yeah.
racism.
I
Yeah.
look, I'm not, yeah, could be. I don't know, but here, what's fascinating is everyone is, as you said, is so open to everyone's culture.
Mhm, mhm,
Whenever we at an example is at the kids' school, whenever there is a religious ceremony, Chinese New Year, Diwali,
mm,
any sort of religious occasion, everyone makes an effort to dress up in or even Ramadan, of course,
mm,
Ramadan. Everyone makes an effort to dress up in the native culture
mm,
uniform, right? Which is amazing. I don't think I ever saw that in the UK.
mm,
So it's just very open. You're right. I mean, you said access to India and access. Yeah, there are a lot of access, and for me, being 3 hours away from India is amazing. I love that. I'm there generally every quarter.
mm,
Um, you know, to the roots of where the Chinmay mission is and
mm.
meeting.
Kerala?
When
Or,
I think we have about 50 ashrams.
mm,
Um, and actually around India. And actually, recently, 2, 3 weeks ago, I was in Kerala, and there's an ashram there,
mm,
which was really nice, and it
mm,
was yeah, really, really tranquil.
mm,
Um, so yeah, no, totally agree. Just there's a lot of more access, more openness here, to any culture, any how um, background and so forth. So no, totally agree with that. To your point about success and significance, look, it's not just monetary. It doesn't need to be monetary. So someone say, "Oh, but my goal is not to 10x my wealth." Okay, that's fine. Um, is significance 10xing your wealth? It can be. Doesn't need to be. It could just be as simple as just being 10x more happy on a daily basis.
mm,
That's significant.
mm,
The course is not just about that. Of course, it focuses on executives and all kinds of arrays of people who want to attend and want to be better at what they do or want to understand their purpose, right? So for me, where I am in that journey is, yeah, I'm still in the process,
mm,
in really taking out the weeds, still taking out the weeds. I say still because it's a process.
mm,
When you've taken out one weed, there's another weed. Okay, fine, let's just take out that weed.
mm,
But I'm getting there. And I know my purpose, which is helping companies grow. And I
mm,
truly believe that's why I'm on this earth. And I'm so thankful to the course of Make It Happen in allowing me to realize that.